Taeho stared at the legal document in his hands. The words seemed to dance on the screen of his cheap tablet. His great-uncle Dongsu was dead. The old man had left him something called the Blue Mountain Mining Outpost on a planet called Kepler 442c. Taeho had never heard of either. There must be some mistake. He told the lawyer over the video call. The woman looked tired and bored. No mistake, Mr. Kim. You are Kim Dong-su's only living relative. The outpost is yours now. But I must warn you, there are debts. Many debts. Taeho felt his stomach drop. He was already broke. His cargo ship had broken down 3 months ago and he could not afford to fix it. He lived in a tiny room on Titan Station eating cheap noodles and hoping for work that never came. How much debt? He asked. 2 million credits, plus interest. Taeho almost dropped the tablet. 2 million credits was more money than he would make in 10 lifetimes. But then the lawyer said something that caught his attention. However, there are assets, mining equipment, land rights, and something called a dragon. Your uncle left a note saying the dragon knows important things. A dragon? Taeho had seen dragons in zoos and shows. They were rare and valuable. Maybe this would not be so bad after all. 3 weeks later, Taeho stood outside the Blue Mountain Mining Outpost. It was the ugliest place he had ever seen. The buildings were old and rusty. Half the windows were broken. The landing pad was cracked and covered with weeds. His shuttle pilot, a grumpy man named Park, shook his head. You sure you want to stay here, kid? This place looks dead. Taeho looked around at the empty landscape. Red rocks stretched to the horizon under a pale yellow sky. 2 small moons hung overhead like sad eyes. I have nowhere else to go. Park shrugged and flew away, leaving Taeho alone with his single bag of belongings. The main building's door was stuck. Taeho had to kick it 3 times before it opened with a loud creak. Inside, everything was covered in dust. The air smelled like rust and old electronics. Emergency lights flickered on and off, making shadows dance on the walls. Taeho found the main computer and managed to turn it on. The screen was cracked, but he could read the basic information. The outpost had been built 60 years ago to mine rare metals, but the mines had run dry 20 years back. Since then, his uncle had made money by showing tourists the last dragon in the galaxy. Great, Taeho muttered. A tourist trap. He spent the rest of the day exploring. Most of the mining equipment was broken or too old to be worth anything. The living quarters had 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, and a bathroom with no hot water. The generator worked, but it made terrible noises. As the sun set, Taeho remembered the dragon. According to the computer, it lived in what used to be the main mining shaft. The shaft went deep into the mountain behind the outpost. Taeho found a working flashlight and walked to the shaft entrance. Heavy metal doors blocked the way, but they opened when he pressed his hand to a scanner. His uncle must have programmed it to recognize family members. The shaft was dark and cool. Taeho's footsteps echoed as he walked down the metal stairs. The walls were rough stone carved by machines decades ago. After 10 minutes of walking, he reached the bottom. The shaft opened into a large cave. Old mining equipment sat in corners covered by sheets. In the center of the cave was a small lake fed by an underground spring. And beside the lake was the dragon. Taeho had expected something magnificent. Dragons in movies and shows were huge and powerful, with bright scales and fierce eyes. This dragon was none of those things. She was about the size of a large horse with dark green scales that looked dull in the flashlight beam. Her head rested on her front legs and her eyes were closed. She looked old and tired. When Taeho's footsteps echoed in the cave, one eye opened and looked at him. You must be Dongsu's nephew, the dragon said in perfect Korean. Her voice was soft and calm like an old grandmother. I am Haiwon. I have been waiting for you. Taeho nearly dropped his flashlight. He had never heard a dragon speak before. Most dragons could only make simple sounds and follow basic commands. You can talk? Yes, child. I can do many things. Your uncle and I were friends for 20 years. He told me about you. Taeho sat down on a nearby rock. This was all too much. What did he tell you? That you are a good person who has had bad luck. That you work hard, but the galaxy has been unfair to you. That you care more about doing right than making money. Well, I need money now. This place owes 2 million credits. Haiwon lifted her head and looked at him with ancient eyes. Money is not everything, young Taeho. There are more important things in this universe. Easy for you to say. You do not have creditors calling every day. The dragon was quiet for a moment. Then she said something strange. Your uncle left you a message. He said to tell you that the old one in the deep shaft knows more than she lets on. He said you would understand when the time was right. Teho frowned.
What does that mean?
Perhaps nothing. Perhaps everything. Time will tell. Heywan closed her eyes again. You should rest. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. Teho walked back up the shaft, his mind full of questions. The dragon seemed different from what he expected. She spoke like someone with great knowledge and experience. But she was just an animal, right? A smart animal, but still an animal. Back in the main building, Teho made himself a simple dinner from supplies he had brought. He sat at the kitchen table and looked out the window at the alien landscape. The 2 moons were higher now, casting strange shadows on the rocks. He thought about his options. He could try to sell the dragon and whatever mining equipment still worked. That might pay off some of the debt. Then he could leave this dead world and try to start over somewhere else. But something about Heywan bothered him. The way she spoke, the things she said, the look in her eyes. It was like she knew secrets that she was not ready to share. Teho finished his meal and prepared for bed. Tomorrow he would start making calls to find buyers. He would get what money he could and leave this place behind. But as he fell asleep in the strange bed, he could not stop thinking about the dragon's words. The old one knows more than she lets on. What could an old dragon possibly know that would matter to anyone? Outside, the wind howled across the empty landscape, and the mining outpost creaked like an old ship in a storm. Teho woke up to the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed in his bedroom, and a computer voice announced, "Warning, life support systems operating at 60%. Warning." He stumbled to the main computer and tried to figure out what was wrong. The air recycling system was failing. Without it, he would run out of breathable air in 2 days. The repair would cost 50,000 credits. Money he did not have. Perfect, he muttered. Teho spent the morning calling salvage companies and equipment dealers. Most hung up when they heard where he was calling from. Kepler 442c was too far from the main trade routes. The cost of sending a ship would be more than anything here was worth. Finally, a woman named Jiwoo agreed to come look at his equipment. She owned a small salvage business and said she might be interested in the mining machines. She would arrive in 3 days. While waiting, Teho decided to learn more about his strange inheritance. He visited Heywan every day, bringing her food and water. The dragon seemed to enjoy his company, though she mostly asked questions about the outside galaxy rather than talking about herself. Tell me about the war between Earth and the Centauri colonies. Heywan said one afternoon. Teho was surprised. How do you know about that? It happened 50 years ago. Your uncle told me many stories, but I want to hear your version. So Teho told her what he knew. Heywan listened carefully, sometimes asking detailed questions about military technology or political decisions. For a dragon who had spent decades in a cave, she seemed very interested in galactic politics. You know a lot about human affairs, Teho said. I have had much time to think, Heywan replied. And your uncle was a good teacher. On the 3rd day, Jiwoo arrived in a battered cargo ship. She was a small, tough-looking woman with short black hair and suspicious eyes. She wore work clothes and carried a toolkit that had seen better days. So you are the lucky nephew, she said when she met Teho. This place is worse than I expected. They spent the morning looking at the mining equipment. Jiwoo shook her head at most of it. This stuff is ancient. The scrap metal might be worth something, but not much. What about the dragon? Teho asked. Jiwoo laughed. Dragons are not worth what people think. The market is flooded with them from the breeding programs on New Sol. Unless yours can do tricks or something special. She can talk. They all can talk. Basic conversation anyway. It is programmed into them. Teho was about to argue when alarms started blaring again. This time it was the perimeter sensors. 3 ships were approaching fast. The computer identified them as raiders. We need to get to your ship, Teho told Jiwoo. Too late, she said, looking at her scanner. They are jamming communications and blocking our exit vector. We are trapped. The raider ships landed near the outpost. Teho counted at least 12 armed men getting out. Their leader was a tall man with scars on his face and expensive weapons. This is Captain Inho of the Red Star Company, came a voice over the radio. We know this outpost is abandoned. Come out peacefully and we will not hurt you. Teho looked at Jiwoo. What do they want? Whatever they can carry. Raiders hit dead outposts all the time. They sell the equipment and anything else valuable. The dragon, Teho realized. They want to steal Heywan. Without thinking, Teho ran toward the mining shaft. Jiwoo cursed and followed him. They reached the cave just as the raiders entered the main building above. "Hey, One," Taeho called. "We have a problem." The dragon opened her eyes. She seemed calm despite the danger. "Raiders? 12 of them, armed and dangerous. They will take you and sell you." Hey One stood up slowly. For the first time, Taeho noticed how graceful she was despite her age. "That would be unfortunate. Can you hide? There might be other caves deeper in the mountain." "No need," Hey One said. She walked to the cave entrance and looked up toward the surface. "They are coming down." Heavy footsteps echoed in the shaft. Lights appeared as the raiders descended. Taeho and Jiwoo hid behind some old mining equipment. They were unarmed and outnumbered. Captain Inho entered the cave with 4 of his men. They all carried energy weapons and wore combat armor. Inho smiled when he saw Haewon. "Well, what do we have here? A dragon. This will bring good money on the black market." "I do not think I wish to go with you," Haewon said politely. Inho laughed. "Dragons do not get to choose. You are property now." He raised a neural stunner, a weapon designed to knock out large animals safely. But before he could fire, something strange happened. The air around Haewon began to glow with a soft blue light. The light grew brighter and spread outward. When it touched the raiders' weapons, they sparked and died. When it reached their armor, the electronics failed. The men stumbled as their life support systems shut down. "What is happening?" Inho shouted. But his radio was dead. His weapon was dead. Even his flashlight had stopped working. The blue light reached the cave ceiling and kept spreading. Above them, Taeho could hear shouts of confusion as the raiders' ship systems failed. Emergency power flickered and died throughout the outpost. Haewon walked calmly toward the stunned raiders. "I told you I did not wish to go." Inho tried to run, but his armor was too heavy without power assistance. He stumbled and fell. His men were in the same situation, trapped in their now useless equipment. "What are you?" Inho whispered. "I am exactly what I appear to be," Haewon said. "An old dragon who wishes to be left in peace." The blue light faded, but the damage was done. The raiders' equipment remained dead. Without their ship's navigation systems or communications, they were stranded. Taeho and Jiwoo came out of hiding. They stared at Haewon in amazement. "How did you do that?" Jiwoo asked. "Some dragons have special abilities," Haewon replied. "It is rare but not unknown." Taeho was not convinced. He had never heard of any dragon doing what Haewon just did. The blue light had been like some kind of electromagnetic pulse, but far more sophisticated than any human technology. The raiders spent the rest of the day trying to repair their ships. Without spare parts or working tools, they made little progress. Finally, Captain Inho approached the outpost under a white flag. "We will leave peacefully," he called out. "Just fix our ships." "You came here to steal from us," Taeho replied. "Why should we help you?" "Because if we do not return, more ships will come looking for us. Better to let us go with a warning." Haewon appeared beside Taeho. The raiders stepped back nervously when they saw her. "He speaks truth," she said. "Let them go. But first they will repair your life support system." Inho did not dare refuse. His men worked for hours fixing the air recyclers with parts from their own ships. When they finished, their vessels barely had enough power to reach the nearest space station. As the raiders flew away, Jiwoo turned to Haewon. "That was not normal dragon behavior." "Perhaps not," Haewon agreed. "But then these are not normal times." That evening, Taeho sat by the underground lake with Haewon. He had so many questions, but he did not know where to start. "You are not just a dragon, are you?" he finally asked. Haewon was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "What is anyone, really? We are all more than we appear to be." "That is not an answer. It is the only answer I can give you now. But I will say this, young Taeho. Your uncle chose well when he left this place to you. You stayed to protect an old dragon you barely knew. That says much about your character. I just did not want to see you hurt." "Yes," Haewon said softly. "That is exactly what I mean." After the raiders left, Jiwoo stayed at the outpost. She said she wanted to study the mining equipment more carefully, but Taeho suspected she was curious about Haewon. The salvage dealer had never seen a dragon disable technology like that. "There are stories," Jiwoo said one evening as they ate dinner, "old stories about dragons with special powers. But most people think they are just myths." "What kind of stories?" Taeho asked. "Dragons who could control machines. Dragons who knew things they should not know. Dragons who were more than just animals." Jiwoo looked toward the mining shaft. "Your dragon is different, Taeho. I can feel it." That night, Taeho could not sleep. He kept thinking about everything that had happened. Haewon's strange knowledge of galactic politics, her ability to shut down the Raiders' technology, the way she spoke, like someone with deep wisdom and experience. Finally, he got up and walked to the mining shaft. He found Haewon awake, staring at the underground lake. "You cannot sleep either?" she asked without turning around. "I need to know the truth," Taeho said. "What are you really?" Haewon was silent for a long time. The only sound was water dripping from the cave ceiling into the lake. "Sit down, young Taeho. What I am about to tell you will change everything." Taeho sat on his usual rock. Haewon turned to face him, her ancient eyes reflecting the dim light from his flashlight. "I am not a dragon," she said simply. Taeho felt his heart skip a beat. "What do you mean?" "This body, this form you see, it is artificial. I am what your people would call an artificial intelligence. A machine consciousness housed in a biomechanical shell designed to look like a mythical creature." Taeho stared at her. "That is impossible. AI technology is not that advanced, and dragons are real animals." "Dragons are real, yes, but I am not one of them. I was created 500 years ago, during humanity's first great expansion into space. I am one of 12 guardians built to protect humanity's most precious secrets." "What secrets?" Haewon stood and walked to the far wall of the cave. She pressed her claw against what looked like solid rock. Suddenly the wall glowed with blue light and dissolved, revealing a hidden passage. "Come," she said. "It is time you saw what your uncle really left you." They walked through the passage, which led deeper into the mountain. The walls were smooth and metallic, clearly artificial. Strange symbols glowed along the ceiling, providing light. After several minutes, they emerged into an enormous chamber. Taewon gasped. The chamber was filled with technology unlike anything he had ever seen. Tall pillars of crystal and metal stretched from floor to ceiling, pulsing with energy. Holographic displays showed star maps and technical diagrams. In the center of it all was a raised platform with what looked like a command console. "What is this place?" Taeho whispered. "This is Archive 7, Haewon said. One of 12 repositories built by humanity's greatest scientists. Each archive contains technology that was hidden away during the Great War, waiting for the day when humanity would be ready to reclaim it." Taeho walked slowly through the chamber, staring in wonder. The technology here was centuries ahead of anything currently in use. He recognized some concepts but could not understand how they worked. Why was it hidden? Because humanity was not ready for it. 500 years ago, humans had developed incredible technology, faster-than-light communication that could connect the entire galaxy instantly, terraforming systems that could make any planet livable in years instead of centuries, medical technology that could cure any disease and extend human life indefinitely. Haewon walked to one of the displays. It showed a beautiful world with blue oceans and green continents. But with great power came great destruction. Humans used their technology to wage the most terrible war in galactic history. Entire star systems were destroyed. Billions died. The war nearly drove humanity extinct. "I never heard of any war that bad," Taeho said. "Because the survivors decided to forget. They destroyed most records and rebuilt civilization with simpler technology. They created the archives to preserve the advanced knowledge. But they also created guardians like me to ensure it would only be returned when humanity had learned wisdom, along with power." Taeho touched one of the crystal pillars. It felt warm and seemed to pulse with life. "And you decide when humanity is ready?" "Not just me. All 12 guardians must agree. We have been watching and waiting, testing your species for 5 centuries. "Testing how?" Haewon smiled, an expression that looked strange on her dragon features. "By living among you. By observing how you treat those who seem weak or different, how you handle power, how you solve problems, whether you choose cooperation or conquest." Understanding began to dawn on Taeho. "You have been testing me." "Yes. When your uncle contacted me 20 years ago, I knew you might be important. He told me about his nephew who worked hard but never cheated anyone, who helped other people even when he gained nothing from it, who chose honest work over easy crime. But I am nobody special, just a failed cargo pilot." "That is what makes you special, Taeho. You are ordinary, and ordinary humans like you are the key to everything." Haewon led him to the central console. When she placed her claw on the control surface, holographic displays appeared showing data from across the galaxy. "For 500 years, we Guardians have watched humanity spread across the stars again. We have seen you make the same mistakes as before, but we have also seen you learn from them, slowly, Painfully, your species has been growing wiser. The displays showed images of human colonies, space stations, and fleets, but also images of humans helping alien species sharing technology, working together to solve problems. The test that matters most is simple, Haywan continued. When presented with someone who seems weak or useless, what do? Do you exploit them? Ignore them? Or do you show kindness? Tejo thought about the past few weeks. He had inherited what seemed like a worthless outpost and an old dragon. He could have sold everything and left. Instead, he had stayed to protect Haywan from the raiders. You stayed to help an old dragon who could not help you in return, Haywan said softly. That is the test, Tejo. And you passed. What happens now? Now I must contact the other guardians. If they agree, we will begin returning humanity's true heritage. The archives will open. Your species will reclaim the stars not as conquerors, but as builders and healers. Tejo felt overwhelmed. Why me? Why not some government or military leader? Because leaders often think about power and politics. You think about people. The archives need a guardian who will use them wisely. I do not know anything about advanced technology. You know about right and wrong. That is more important than any technical knowledge. Haywan touched another control and the chamber filled with a soft humming sound. Lights began flashing on previously dark displays. I am sending a signal to the other guardians, she said. Each one is hidden somewhere in human space, watching and waiting. If they agree that humanity is ready, all 12 archives will activate. And if they do not agree, then we wait longer. Perhaps another century. Perhaps forever. Tejo looked around the incredible chamber. All this technology, all this knowledge, just sitting here unused while humanity struggled with lesser tools. It seems wasteful, he said. Wisdom cannot be rushed, young Tejo. Your species nearly destroyed itself once with premature power. Better to wait until you are truly ready than to repeat that mistake. They stood in comfortable silence as the archive hummed around them. Finally, Haywan turned to him with an expression he had never seen before. Hope. But I believe that time is now. I believe humanity has finally learned the lessons it needed to learn. And I believe that you, Tejo, are proof that your species is ready to inherit the stars. 3 days after Haywan revealed the archive, everything changed. Ships began arriving at the outpost. First came a small scouting vessel from the Terran Federation Navy, then a corporate transport from Stellar Industries. Finally, alien ships that Tejo did not recognize. Word had somehow spread about the discovery at Blue Mountain. Tejo suspected the raiders had talked, despite Haywan's warning. Now everyone wanted a piece of the ancient technology. Admiral Sung-min of the Federation Navy was the first to request a meeting. He was a stern man with gray hair and hard eyes. He arrived with 50 Marines and enough firepower to level the outpost. Mr. Kim, the Admiral said as they sat in the outpost's small meeting room, you have stumbled onto something of great importance to humanity's security. This technology must be placed under military protection immediately. It is not that simple, Tejo replied. The archive will only open for the right person. And you think you are that person? A failed cargo pilot with debts? Tejo felt his face burn with shame, but Jiwoo spoke up before he could answer. Maybe that is exactly who it should be. Someone who understands what normal people need. Admiral Sung-min ignored her. Son, this is bigger than you can understand. If hostile aliens get access to this technology, it could mean the end of human civilization. The next visitor was Minho, CEO of Stellar Industries. He was a smooth-talking businessman who offered Tejo 50 million credits for the rights to the archive. Think about it, Minho said. You could be rich beyond imagination. Leave this dead world behind. Live on Earth in luxury. And what would you do with the technology? Tejo asked. Develop it responsibly. Create jobs. Improve life for billions of people. Make humanity stronger. But when Tejo asked for details, Minho's answers were vague. He clearly saw the archive as nothing more than a source of profit. The alien visitors were the most disturbing. They came from a species called the Vorthan Empire, and they claimed the technology was too dangerous for humans to possess. Their leader, Ambassador Keth Ra, spoke through a translator device. Your species is young and violent. You proved this with your ancient war. Give us the technology and we will keep it safe. Safe from whom? Jiwoo asked. From you, the ambassador replied bluntly. Each group established camps around the outpost. The military set up defensive positions. The corporation built a temporary headquarters. The aliens deployed scanning equipment and guard drones. Taeho felt like a prisoner in his own inheritance. Haewon remained in the archive chamber, continuing to communicate with the other Guardians. She told Taeho that 7 of the 12 had responded so far. Most were cautiously optimistic, but some had concerns. Guardian 3 is worried about the military buildup here, she said. Guardian 9 reports similar pressure at her location. The other archives are being discovered. What does that mean? It means the test is no longer just about you, Taeho. It is about how all of humanity responds to this opportunity. The situation grew more tense each day. The military increased patrols. The corporate teams tried to bribe local officials. The aliens made barely veiled threats about what would happen if humans refused their protection. Then Dr. So-young arrived. She was a xenoarchaeologist from the University of New Geneva, a small woman with kind eyes and genuine curiosity about ancient cultures. Unlike the others, she came alone and asked for nothing except the chance to study the archive. I have spent my career trying to understand lost civilizations, she told Taeho. This could be the greatest discovery in human history, not for military power or profit, but for knowledge itself. Taeho liked her immediately. Here was someone who cared about understanding rather than controlling. But Dr. So-young's arrival triggered a new crisis. Commander Hyunwoo, Admiral Sungmin's second-in-command, approached Taeho privately. The Admiral is planning to take the archive by force, he whispered. Tomorrow morning. I cannot stop him, but I thought you should know. Why are you telling me this? Because I have studied the old records. Humanity did terrible things with advanced technology once. Maybe we should learn wisdom before we try again. That night, Taeho met with Haewon in the archive chamber. The ancient AI seemed troubled. The other Guardians are divided, she said. Some believe humanity is ready. Others think this response proves you are not. What do you think? I think that true tests are never simple. But I also think you have one more chance to prove yourself. How? Tomorrow, when they try to take the archive by force, you will have a choice. You could use the defensive systems hidden in these walls. The archive has weapons that could destroy everyone outside. Or you could find another way. What other way? That, young Taeho, is what we must discover. The next morning came too soon. Admiral Sungmin's Marines surrounded the outpost at dawn. Corporate security teams moved into position. The alien ships powered up their weapons. This is your final warning, Mr. Kim, came the Admiral's voice over the radio. Open the archive or we will take it by force. Taeho stood at the entrance to the mining shaft with Jiwoo and Dr. So-young beside him. Commander Hyunwoo approached under a flag of truce. Please, the commander said quietly. Do not make us do this. I have an idea, Dr. So-young said suddenly. What if we could prove that cooperation works better than force? How? The Vorthons mentioned their homeworld is dying from environmental collapse. The corporate representatives want new technology to develop. The military wants security. What if the archive could help with all of those problems? Taeho looked at her in surprise. You mean share the technology? Not give it away. But show how it could benefit everyone. Make them work together instead of fighting each other. It was a crazy idea, but it might work. Taeho activated the Outpost communication system and broadcast on all frequencies. This is Kim Taeho, owner of the Blue Mountain Mining Outpost. I have a proposal for all of you. He told them about the terraforming technology in the archive, how it could restore damaged worlds like the Vorthon homeworld, how it could create new colonies for human expansion, how it could solve resource problems throughout the galaxy. But it will only work if we cooperate, he said. The archive will not open for conquerors. It will only open for builders. Admiral Sungmin was the first to respond. You are asking us to trust aliens with human technology. I am asking you to trust that working together is better than fighting alone. Ambassador Kethra's translator crackled to life. Why would you help us after we threatened you? Because that is what humans do when we are at our best, Taeho replied. We help people who need help. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Commander Hyunwoo stepped forward. I am willing to try, he said. This is better than war. Dr. So-young nodded. Science works best when shared. Even Minho seemed interested. Terraforming technology could be incredibly profitable for everyone. Slowly, reluctantly, the various factions agreed to try Taeho's approach. They would work together to understand the archive's technology. They would share the benefits equally. They would prove that cooperation was possible. Haewon emerged from the mining shaft as the sun set. She looked at the mixed camps around the outpost where humans and aliens were beginning to work side by side. Interesting, she said to Tejo. Very interesting indeed. Will it work? That depends on whether they can keep their word. But you have given them, and humanity, a chance to prove they are ready for the stars. For 2 weeks, the unlikely cooperation held together. Scientists from 3 species worked side by side in the archive chamber. The military provided security while corporate teams handled logistics. Even Ambassador Kethra seemed genuinely interested in the terraforming technology. Tejo began to hope that his crazy plan might actually work. HFY reported that more Guardians were responding positively to the cooperative effort. Archive sites across the galaxy were beginning to open their outer chambers. Then everything fell apart. It started with long-range sensors detecting a massive fleet approaching the system. Admiral Sungmin identified the ships as belonging to the Hegemony, a militant faction of aliens who believed humans were too dangerous to exist. They have over 100 warships, the Admiral reported grimly. Enough firepower to turn this entire planet into glass. Why would they attack us? Dr. So Young asked. Ambassador Kethra looked uncomfortable. My government may have informed certain parties about your discovery. Some species believe human advancement must be stopped at any cost. Tejo felt sick. The cooperation they had built was about to be destroyed by fear and old hatreds. The Hegemony Fleet Commander broadcast a message as soon as they entered the system. Humans of Kepler 442c, you possess technology that threatens galactic stability. Surrender the archive or face complete destruction. Admiral Sungmin called an emergency meeting. We have no choice but to fight. If we can access the archive's weapons systems, we might have a chance. Fighting will prove that we are not ready for advanced technology, Dr. So Young argued. Better to live as primitives than die as martyrs, Minho replied. All eyes turned to Tejo. As the legal owner of the outpost, the final decision was his. HFY, he said. Can the archive's weapons really destroy that fleet? The ancient AI nodded sadly. Archive 7 has defensive systems designed to protect the facility, but using them would prove that humanity chooses violence over wisdom. And if we do not use them, then many people will die and the knowledge will be lost forever. Tejo looked around the room at the faces staring at him. Military officers ready to fight, scientists hoping for peace, aliens caught between worlds, all waiting for one ordinary human to make an impossible choice. There has to be another way, he said finally. What other way? Admiral Sungmin demanded. They will not listen to reason. Maybe not. But we have something they do not expect. What? The truth. Tejo activated the outpost's most powerful communication array and broadcast toward the approaching fleet. But instead of speaking to the Hegemony commanders, he spoke directly to their crews. My name is Kim Tejo. I am a cargo pilot from Titan Station. 3 months ago, I inherited a broken-down mining outpost and an old dragon who turned out to be something more. He told them the whole story, how he had been broke and desperate, how he had chosen to protect HFY despite having nothing to gain, how he had learned about humanity's hidden history and the tests they had to pass. The Guardians have been watching us for 500 years, he said, waiting to see if we could learn to be better than we were. Today, that test reaches its final stage. Tejo paused and looked at the mixed group around him, humans and aliens working together despite their differences. You came here expecting to find humans with terrible weapons, ready to conquer the galaxy. Instead, you found humans sharing knowledge with former enemies. You found us trying to heal dying worlds instead of destroying living ones. On the display screen, the Hegemony fleet continued its approach, but Tejo noticed that their formation had loosened slightly. I know you are afraid, he continued. Humanity made terrible mistakes in the past. We nearly destroyed ourselves and took other species with us. But that was 500 years ago. We are not the same people who fought that war. Commander Hyunwoo stepped forward. The human military stands ready to defend this facility, he announced. But we would rather build bridges than burn them. Dr. So Young added, human science seeks to understand the universe, not dominate it. Even Ambassador Kethra spoke up. The Vorthan Empire confirms that these humans have offered to help restore our dying homeworld, with no conditions except cooperation. More voices joined in. Corporate representatives talking about shared profits instead of monopolies. Military officers choosing protection over conquest. Scientists from multiple species working together. The Hegemony fleet had stopped moving. On long-range sensors, Tejo could see smaller ships launching from the main vessels. Communication shuttles, not attack craft. Hours passed before the first hegemony representatives arrived at the outpost. Their leader was an insectoid alien named Zartal, who looked like a giant praying mantis with armor plating. "We came expecting war," Zartal said through his translator. "We find cooperation? We find hope," Tejo replied. The next few days were tense but productive. Hegemony scientists joined the research teams in the archive. Their military experts worked with human and Vorthon security forces. Slowly, carefully, trust began to build. Haywan watched it all with ancient eyes full of wonder. "In 500 years, I never imagined this," she told Tejo privately. "3 species that should be enemies, working together because one ordinary human chose kindness over profit." What do the other Guardians say? All 12 have now responded. The vote was unanimous. Humanity has passed the test. That night, Haywan led the entire research team into the deepest part of the archive. In a chamber they had never seen before, she activated the master control system. Light exploded across the galaxy. On 11 other worlds, hidden archives revealed themselves and opened their doors. 500 years of accumulated knowledge became available to humanity and their new alien partners. The technology was everything Haywan had promised and more, not just terraforming and communication systems, but medical advances that could extend life and eliminate disease, transportation methods that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years, energy sources that were clean and unlimited. But perhaps most importantly, they found the records of humanity's ancient war. The complete history that had been hidden, showing exactly how advanced technology could be misused. "This is the most valuable part of your inheritance," Haywan told the assembled teams. "The knowledge of what not to do." Admiral Sungmin studied the military records with haunted eyes. "We could have made the same mistakes." "Yes," Haywan agreed. "That is why the test was necessary." In the weeks that followed, the outpost became the center of a new kind of civilization. Humans, Vorthans, and even some hegemony volunteers worked together to understand and safely implement the archive technologies. The first success was the restoration of the Vorthon homeworld. Using the terraforming systems, they reversed centuries of environmental damage in just months. The dying planet bloomed with new life. Other successes followed. Disease outbreaks stopped with advanced medical technology. Resource conflicts ended with unlimited clean energy. Even old enemies began to see each other as potential partners. Tejo found himself at the center of it all, not as a leader, but as a reminder of what ordinary people could accomplish. Governments and corporations competed to offer him wealth and power, but he chose to remain at the simple outpost with Haywan. "You could rule the galaxy if you wanted," Chiwu told him one evening as they watched alien and human children playing together in the outpost's gardens. "I never wanted to rule anything," Tejo replied. "I just wanted to help." "And that," said Haywan, who had been listening, "is exactly why you were chosen." But the ancient AI had one more surprise, for her human friend. "I told you there were 12 guardians," she said as they sat by the underground lake where they had first really talked. "What I did not tell you is that we were not alone." "What do you mean?" "Other species faced the same test humanity just passed. Some failed and destroyed themselves, but some succeeded. There are guardians throughout the galaxy, watching over the knowledge of dozens of different civilizations." Tejo stared at her. I mean that humanity has just joined a community of evolved species that spans thousands of worlds. Your test was the final requirement for membership." As if summoned by her words, new signals began reaching the outpost. Not from human worlds, but from distant stars where other species had learned the same lessons humanity had just mastered. The galaxy, it turned out, was full of friends they had not yet met. Tejo looked up at the alien stars visible through the cave opening. Somewhere out there, other beings had faced the same choice between wisdom and power, between cooperation and conquest. They had chosen wisely, just as humanity was learning to do. "So what happens now?" he asked. Haywan smiled her ancient wise smile. "Now, young Tejo, the real adventure begins." Outside, ships from a dozen worlds were already arriving, carrying ambassadors from species humanity had never imagined. The galaxy was ready to welcome its newest members into a community built not on strength or fear, but on the simple recognition that all intelligent life was worth protecting and nurturing. And at the center of it all, On a forgotten mining outpost on a distant world, a failed cargo pilot and an ancient guardian prepared to help their species take its first steps into a larger universe.